Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishnan. Basically, today we are going to discuss about the 120 part basically of the formula. And here, basically, in last part, basically, were discussing about basically how tough basically it's to run the 24 hours, to run the 24 hours, to run the 24-hour city, to run the 24 hours states, to run the 24 hours country. So currently, basically, I am in India. That's why I'm telling city, states, and country. So like this, basically, uh, in last basically episode we have saw that how tough basically it's to run the 24 hours. Each and everything basically which is happening in the city, that basically we have to control. If anything bad is happening, then basically we have to control that because we have to run the country basically. We have to run the city basically. We have to run the states. So run the states means whatever the things are basically decided that should happen. That's all. Whatever the rules and regulation which are created, that should happen. That's all. So rules and regulation is what's basically that is basically we are going to discuss actually what actually the rules and regulations are. Rules and regulation means I will take little bit in little bit in short basically what actually the rules and regulation. Rules and regulation means the stuff basically which are supposed to happen, that is going to happen 100%. This is basically just a small definition of the rules and regulation. For that, basically, the rules is created for which task basically. That basically are secrets. That basically even basically the very senior advocates also don't know that basically the rule this rules is basically going to create which type of task basically. So rules basically in simple language, the stuff basically which are going to which is decided basically inside the rules basically, that basically task must happen at any cost. So that is basically rules basically. So in detail basically we are going to take few topic of this also basically when we are going to discuss the government part and the high courts and supreme courts part basically, and the rules and regulation created by the set of groups. Basically, in India, basically the Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar has created the rules and regulation, and that basically we are going to discuss. But that is basically that would be basically in the government part basically of the formula under the formula basically. The formula basically it's going to be very in detail basically because formula contains set of attributes contains set of balance sheets, and the balance sheet contains the set of information of the different sector basically you can say. So basically it's going to be very deep. So this is basically 120 number. We are discussing about the what actually the government is, how basically governments are running the 24 hours, up to what level is the task basically government have to do, that also within the rules and regulation. The government have to complete the 24 hours, that also within the rules and regulation. That is basically the within the boundary basically you can say. The boundary which is drawn by the Supreme Courts and the High Courts basically. You can say. Mostly government rules are passed by the Supreme Courts only, so it's basically directly the Supreme Courts. So the rules and regulation which is created by the Supreme Courts. So like this, basically each and every stuff basically which is decided by the Supreme Courts, and that basically within that boundary basically the government has to run the 24 hours basically you can say. So for 24 hours basically the land level tasks are there, the universe level tasks are there. Like this basically there are many stuff basically that also you can say, like universal level task basically you can say the entire earth planet is moving like 220 countries are moving, like assume 222 countries are moving. So within that 222 country, the India land is also moving in the universe. So you can just imagine the tough level task basically the governments are doing. Basically the 222 countries basically are handled mostly by government only. So you can just imagine the tough level task. Here basically we are talking about the Indian government because currently I'm in India. So I'm talking about the Indian government. So how basically the government are doing the tough task, basically you can just imagine basically the 24 level task basically. Basically why basically we are discussing in this formula. The reason is basically the in this all the user stories which we are discussing, that is 100% going to connect to the formulas. That basically mostly basically this might be covered by the project management plan group, basically who created the project management plan, who created the SDLC, that is basically software development life cycle of the project, basically who created the SDLC of the software industry. They basically, that group basically by default they might have created this, because that's why they have reached up to that position. Because so we assume that this all the things basically are containing in that basically SDLC and the project management plan certification basically, and the project management plan group basically. There are basically set of project management plan groups, agile methodology groups, waterfall methodology groups. Basically, set of groups has created this. So that group basically by default they might have added, because they might be knowing the balance sheet also of the each and every attributes. How basically the balance sheet mostly might be having, but the balance sheet is basically connected to formulas that basically mostly the system might not be having. For example, one formula basically contain EV plus AC. So basically, EV basically contains set of formula, set of balance sheets, and the AC contains the set of balance sheet. So two balance sheet are getting plus, and two balance sheets are getting minus, and two balance sheets are getting divided. So this software basically mostly the SDLC department and project management plan department might not have created, because when you will be going to create the system, then basically you will be exactly doing each and every stuff basically. So like this basically we are not talking about that basically. So that also we are going to talk basically how basically this software is going to be designed. But here basically we are talking about the 24 hours work basically which government is doing, and how government is telling that we are doing that stuff basically perfectly. So how government is telling that the 20 to 200 crore basically people who are basically staying in Indian land basically, India land basically, they are basically in peacefully basically. How they are telling, because they are telling that the energy we are connected with the energy industry and the power industry and the nuclear plant in industry basically, and they are not going to damage anybody's head, and they are not going to damage anybody's hand, and they are not going to damage anybody's legs basically. Up to that level basically the oxygen supply basically they are going to pass basically for the 200 crore basically. So they have not damaged anybody's head, so they are not damaged anybody's body parts. So that is basically the different issue. So like this basically the government is telling that we are taking care of the each and every people basically, because we have the data of each and every people in the nuclear plant, in the energy company, and in the power companies of the database basically, you can say. So there basically it might be totally different database which might not be basically in front of the world basically. That database might not be Oracle, might not be in Microsoft, that might be in totally in different technology. So here basically that is not the topic. Here the topic is basically the 24 hours data basically the government have basically. So for example, government is telling that we are sending the set of energy level basically to that city basically. So basically the government have the entire city, each and every objects, each and every vehicles information, each and every trees information, each and every vehicles information, each and every humans information, each and every house information, each and every buildings information, each and every malls information, each and every commercial complex information. So like this, each and every construction information also they might be having. They have the nature information also, because trees are also there. They might be having the total animals information basically, how many animals are in the cities basically. So like this basically each and every information government has, and according to that only the basically they are passing the energy level to the cities basically, and on the base of the energy level the cities is running basically, that also very smoothly. So you can just imagine the power of the government also, how the powerful government is, how basically the powerful government is connected with the Bollywood industry, and how basically Bollywood industry says that we have the set of information also of the each and every areas, each and every government, sorry, each and every peoples, how basically up to what level that businessman basically example I have already taken basically like that basically their business is also like that basically that they earns money like this also. So like this basically they are telling that basically we are into like this business, and few people are selling the few people are like this basically cricketer basically cricketer. The cricketer basically says that we are just doing the job of BCCI, we are just getting the salary, we are just getting few salaries basically. Like the same way the Bollywood groups are also few people are there basically they are telling that this all basically house everything this is not ours basically, that is basically the property of Bollywood, and that basically we are just taking the salary. So that is basically few people basically. So that's the few people, we are not talking about the entire Bollywood industry, that are basically few people. So like this, basically the Bollywood industry is telling that we have the each and every information of the each and every people, and like this, basically we are doing our stuff. Basically, that also basically very with perfect plan, basically. So like this, basically the Bollywood industry. This is a little bit about the Bollywood industry. That is basically 120 number part. In 121, basically we are going to discuss more about the Bollywood industry.